gives you back. The question is, how much do you want? How much do you want to sow with God? How much blessing do you want? How much do you want to invest in the greatest investment there is? And that is to invest with a living God who always gets a full return on every investment. That's the heart of this study. To get to the place where you line up pleading for an opportunity to give, because you understand that this is going to bring in a harvest in time and eternity, which will make you spiritually and even materially wealthy. You say, even materially? Sure. God is going to make bread for your food as well as spiritual fruit of righteousness. God is going to pour out blessing on you. Now, I don't want to cheat you out of those riches. I don't want to cheat you out of those blessings. And so to discharge my responsibility to God and to make sure I don't rob you, I am going to take you through this series. Now, most of us are aware as we start this series that there's sort of a difficulty today in our giving. And it really comes from two fronts. The world, first of all, sucks up so much of our money that we don't have the amount to give we should. The world is coming after you, and it comes after you to separate you from your money. It comes after you to get you to indulge yourself in every conceivable kind of thing. And that puts people in a very difficult position. The world not only adds to advertising the tremendous power of media to capture you, but then they provide credit so you can buy things when you don't even have money and put yourself in a deeper and deeper hole, sinking more and more into debt, and which puts you in a position that limits your giving as well. In fact, it becomes so difficult for people in the world to even make their normal sort of budget because of the way they have overspent, that somebody said you can easily figure your cost of living by just taking all your income and adding 20%. That's how most people live. Financial problems are a major cause of divorce in 80% of couples who are divorced before the age of 30. Before they can even start to get a life together, it's torn apart by financial problems. We are living in an indulgent, materialistic culture, and that takes a toll on our giving. But it's not just the external culture telling us to spend our money stupidly and foolishly, but we're even bombarded in the Christian world by other people who want to separate us from our money to build their empires. We are all very sensitive, I hope by now, after having seen some of the scandals that have hit evangelicalism, to be very alert to where we spend our money. And not to send it in, to buy people's wardrobes and fancy sets on television programs and help people build empires. The whole idea of dealing with money is problematic both in the culture and in the church. And then you can add another deal, and that's the whole notion of retirement. The desire to have a large stash of money early so that you can do nothing productive with your life for as long a time as possible. Really is the world's mentality. That's the world's philosophy. That the goal of life is to get in a position to do nothing, but only what you want to do. And we all know that idleness is the devil's plaything, right? I'm not saying you need to work all your life at the job you have, but I am saying you need to work all your life at something. If God frees you from the need for gainful employment and gives you the time, then you ought to spend the rest of your life working for the kingdom harder than you ever worked for the world. But vegetating has no virtue. Becoming the couch potato or doing what you want when you want all the time doesn't seem to serve holy purposes. Now, all these are factors that affect our giving. There's a place for saving. There's a place for wise planning. There's a place for meeting your needs. There's a place for responding to the culture around you, and a measure of comfort is within the purposes of God. But we need to understand how we are to give, to what we are to give, where we are to give, how much we are to give, by what motives we are to give, and what's going to happen to us if we do, and what's going to happen if we don't. And those are the kinds of questions that we're going to have answered as we go through 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9. And I want you to know I'm not seeking your money, I'm seeking your joy. I'm not seeking your riches, I'm seeking your blessing. And God has a lot to say about this issue. Now, before we look at our text, I want to give you some introductory material, and I want to talk about several things. First of all, I want to talk about the morality of money. The morality of money, and then later, the love of money. And then we'll talk about the acquiring of money and the use of money. And that'll give us a sort of a foundation on which we can build our biblical model for a believer's giving. Let's talk about the morality of money. Money in itself is not good or bad. It's not righteous or evil. It is neutral. But money is a measure of morality. It definitely is. When we talk about money, we're talking about life. We really are. Money is so central to our everyday living. As a medium of exchange, it defines how we live. I can take your checkbook if you write checks, and I can go through the register of your checks for a period of time, and I can discern your priorities. I can see where your money goes, and where your money goes is where your heart is. That's obvious. Those of you who don't use checks but use a credit card, I can look at the accounting for your credit card on a monthly statement, and I can pretty well discern where your heart is. Where you put your money demonstrates your morality. Money in itself is amoral, but money also is a barometer. It is a measure by which I can know what I need to know about the priorities of your life. Some people say money corrupts. Well, there are corrupt people, and certainly money is a way in which they manifest their corruption. But there are also people with money who are not corrupt, and money is a way in which they manifest their righteousness. And there are corrupt people who have no money. And there are people who have no money and are godly people. Money doesn't necessarily corrupt. It just shows up more visibly the corruption of the heart that possesses it. You take a corrupt person, give him a lot of money, and he'll be able to spread his corruption further. It's not money that is the problem. It's the heart that is the problem, but money measures that out. Some people have said, money is so much the problem, you just need to get rid of all your money. It's wrong for a Christian to have more money than is necessary for bare necessities, they say. And they might advocate that you take the vow of poverty, or that you take all your money, a group of Christians take all their money, throw it in a common pot, divide it up equally, and we'll have Christian communism. Well, that kind of stuff is not in the Scripture. That's not what happened, for example, in Acts 2. In Acts 2, there were people who had money and had land and property, and people who didn't. And when people who didn't had a need, sometimes they would sell what they owned to give money to those who had